Hello there. Welcome to my show, COVID-19 Update by Heerak for May 18th, 2020, Monday. And today we had our commencement at the University of Pennsylvania, 264th commencement. And so I want to kind of honor University of Pennsylvania, my alma mater, where I did my bachelor's degree, and by playing their anthem, Hail. So this is like the national anthem or the anthem of the University of Pennsylvania, which is in Philadelphia. So I graduated with a bachelor's in history and minor in classical studies from the University of Pennsylvania. I graduated 1 year early, so I graduated in 3 years instead of four. So there was a commencement ceremony today at the University of Pennsylvania. And I remember my commencement on my graduation. It was amazing. You know, we walked from the high rises. That was one end of the University of Pennsylvania, and there were Scottish pipers, bagpipers playing bagpipes as we marched. And we marched from one end of the campus on Locust Walk all the way to the football stadium. Um, and yeah, uh, there's over 1,000 of us marching, and then there were other classes lined up, kind of leading the way. So it's a fantastic kind of a ceremony because there's, yeah, it's very memorable, and it's one of the greatest memories I have of University of Pennsylvania. So I feel so bad for class of 2020 who do not get to experience this great commencement ceremony and march from high rises from one end of the campus to other end of the campus, as people cheer you on, on both sides. It's something, I feel so bad that class of 2020 is missing that, you're never going to get it back. And that's why it's so sad because, after 4 years of working so hard, you kind of deserve that commencement ceremony that is special. I'm the vice president of the University of Pennsylvania Alumni Association of Washington, D.C., where President Donald Trump is a member by the virtue of the fact that he graduated from Penn, Warren School, which is the business school of Penn, and his daughter, Tiffany Trump, who's now class of 2020 at Georgetown Law School. She graduated from University of Pennsylvania 3 years ago. And I'm sure she remembers the wonderful ceremony of commencement marching from high rises building. That's where the upperclassmen undergraduates live in the dormitory. There are like 3 high rises, like skyscraper dormitories, like 23, 24 buildings, 23, 24 floors high. It's like a mini apartment where four people live, two rooms, two per room, and then they have a kitchen and like a dining room area. So yeah, I mean, I had some really great memories of living in high rises and undergraduate experiences there. I graduated with Eugene Zeiser and Suchianto. Suchianto was number one in the computer science program in the engineering school. He also graduated in 3 years like me. He's from Indonesia, and he doesn't have a last name. He has just one name, Suchianto. But he's Chinese Indonesian, so he has a Chinese name, but his passport only has an Indonesian name. Ethnic Chinese in Indonesia are very wealthy. They're like millionaires. Like Suchianto had 10 uncles, and they're all millionaires. And yeah, so he came to University of Pennsylvania for his undergraduate major, and then I met him on the first day of the school, and I took a class trip, like a tour of Philadelphia, just to encourage people to join our Bible study group. I started a Bible study group called Student for Christ at the University of Pennsylvania, and so I was recruiting people for our Bible study. And both Eugene Zeiser, who's graduated in 4 years from Warren. I told you about him in several other episodes. He became part of Student for Christ. He's now an Evangelical Lutheran Church in America pastor in Feasterville, Pennsylvania. And Suchianto, he graduated ranked number one. And then he got accepted to the PhD program at I think Stanford in computer science and at Carnegie Mellon University in computer science, which were the best universities at that time. And then he went to Carnegie Mellon and started Student for Christ. But he said, God called him. So he became a missionary to Jordan. And he met his wife there, a Baptist missionary in the Southern Baptist Convention. She was a single missionary. And so they got married. I went to his wedding. It was a nice wedding. They had the wedding at her church. So two missionaries getting married. And he went to Westminster Theological Seminary in Philadelphia, Suchianto. So like I think once he married an American woman, she's white, Baptist, Southern Baptist Convention. He separated his name to Suchi and then Anto. So, but it's not that Anto is not his last name. But so that's kind of funny, I thought. But yeah, he and his wife are missionary. I think with the Southern Baptist Convention, or something that's kind of evangelical. And he and she has heart for proselytizing like Muslims. So that's why they were in Jordan as missionaries for a long time. And they eventually wanted to go to Iraq. That was both of their dreams to go to Iraq. And when Iraq opened up, it was like their dream come true. Yeah, so yeah, I met Suchianto in our first bus tour, and he wasn't a Christian himself, but I brought him to saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. So he converted to Christianity, and then he started coming to our Bible study. He was very active in it for 3 years, and so and then he went to Westminster Seminary, got ordained in the I think PCA, either PCA or OPC. I think it's PCA, and then he went as a missionary to Jordan. So yeah, so I have good memories of University of Pennsylvania. I founded Student for Christ at University of Pennsylvania, and my friend Jim he was the president of InterVarsity Christian Fellowship. They had something like 300 to 500 members. And then Jim went to Westminster Theological Seminary, and then he joined Reverend Tim Keller, and they founded the church together in New York. What's Reverend Tim Keller's church? Redeemer PCA in New York. So when Reverend Keller was planting that church, Jim helped him out. And then he actually brought a lot of Korean Americans in New York to that church, and they became very active members. And then Jim eventually went on to become a senior pastor of like a multicultural church in New Jersey. Um, and Joe Garber, who was a co-valedictorian with Ed Mosang, and they're both my best buddies. And Joe went to University of Pennsylvania with me, but I graduated 1 year early. So Joe graduated 1 year later than me because I graduated in 3 years. And so Joe Garver and I, we went to University of Pennsylvania together. He applied early decision and I applied regular decision, and we both got in. And Joe Garver was very active in InterVarsity Christian Fellowship. And he was the vice president when Jim Mum was the president. And we created this uh, Christian council at University of Pennsylvania made up of evangelical Christian groups. And so we did a lot of important things then. And Joe Garver now is a professor of philosophy at LaSalle University after getting his PhD at Syracuse University in New York. And he married Laurel, and they attend the 10th Presbyterian Church. So he and Laurel were in the same singles group at 10th Presbyterian Church, and they started dating, and they got married 1 year after they started, like their first date. I went to their wedding, and I was the usher at the 10th Presbyterian Church. Both Ed Mosing and I, we were ushers. And Paul Dugan and Sylvia Dugan is his wife. They work at University of Pennsylvania. Paul Dugan was his best man, and Paul Dugan was very active in InterVarsity Christian Fellowship as well. So for 4 years, Joe was close with to Paul Dugan. Paul Dugan goes to 10th Presbyterian Church as well. So yeah, it's kind of interesting, I remember Penn with fondness. Now I've been interviewing high school students who apply to University of Pennsylvania for over 10 years. I've done that this year as well. I interviewed over 23 students. Several students got accepted, so I congratulated them. And I do that every year. And so I'm very actively involved with the University of Pennsylvania. I have a lot of friends who are currently in the administration, professors, different branches of University of Pennsylvania. And obviously I have my fellow alumni, I was in the organizing team for the alumni weekend this year. That was going to be in May, but because of COVID-19, it didn't work out. We didn't have an alumni weekend, obviously, this year because of COVID. But I was in my class, representing my class for this alumni weekend. So I'm very actively involved at University of Pennsylvania. So I want to say hello to everybody at University of Pennsylvania throughout the 50 states of the United States, and actually throughout the world. Sucianto came from Indonesia. And I want to recognize my roommates, sophomore year roommates, Thai Tomasatit. He's Thai American, from Thailand American. His mother and father are doctors at in Iowa, and he went to Phillips Exeter Academy, and it was in the Glee Club. So the song that you heard sang, "Hail Pennsylvania," which is our anthem song, that was sung by the Glee Club, and Thai Tomasatit was in the Glee Club. Yeah, a very bright guy. He went on to go to Stanford for MBA. He first went to McKinsey, worked for 2 years. And then after 2 years, he went to Stanford for MBA. That's how, Ivy League was advanced, right? They work 2 years and they get an MBA from a top school. So he did his finance and systems engineering at Warren, and engineering school did MNT, management and technology. So you got a bachelor's in business and bachelor's in engineering at the same time. He got 4.0. He graduated 4.0. He's an amazing guy. And Phillips Exeter is a great school. So, and then he went to Stanford, got his MBA. He married a Chinese woman who got her MD, medical doctor degree from Stanford Medical School. So they, so they formed a family together there. My other roommate during the same year that Thai Tomasatit and I were roommates is Eng Liang. It's NG is his first name. And then last name is Liang, Leong. And he's from Maryland. He's like a Chinese American. And he was actively involved with the yearbook, University of Pennsylvania yearbook. He took a lot of photos for a yearbook, and he took a photo of me during my pro-life march because I was very actively involved in the pro-life movement. I was obviously the founder and president and leader of Student for Christ at University of Pennsylvania that kind of represented like the Presbyterians at University of Pennsylvania. It's a Calvinist movement that we started. What we call Reform Church movement. It's kind of a brother-sister movement with Reform University Fellowship, which is a Presbyterian church in America, PCA denomination kind of supported ministry on college campuses. It's called RUF, Reform University Fellowship. So Student for Christ is similar to that because it's supported by Presbyterian Church in Korea, my denomination, and it's very active. Every college campus in Korea has SFC. My father was the first national, what do you call that, supervisor of Student for Christ in Korea, and he made it really big. So it's kind of like, being a leader of InterVarsity Christian Fellowship. But my father doesn't like parachurch movement. Parachurch movement are like CCC, crew, like Campus Crusade for Christ, Navigators, InterVarsity Christian Fellowship, because they're kind of separate from a church, and they're like student group. So my dad doesn't like that. He likes like Reformed University Fellowship, Baptist Koinonia. Baptist Koinonia, I think, is with Southern Baptist Convention. And Reformed University Fellowship is tied to a denomination as well, which is Presbyterian Church in America. And Student for Christ is tied to the denomination Korean Presbyterian Church or Presbyterian Church in Korea. And so my father's rationale is that whenever a Christian group is separate from a church, it has a tendency to go really liberal, and we've seen that with InterVarsity a little bit. I mean, there's internal struggle, but there's like a feminist movement within InterVarsity. Same with Campus Crusade for Christ. Same with Christian Union in England. There's like this feminist movement, a liberalizing movement, which is kind of a problem. Like, because the founders obviously don't support that. Like, a Reformed University Fellowship, they are against gay marriage, homosexuality, and abortion as a matter of policy, because it's tied to the Presbyterian Church in America, which is a denomination that opposes gay marriage, homosexuality, and abortion. Those are, they want that to be legalized, and it's official stance of the church. Just like the Catholic Church, official church position of all Catholic churches in the world, or billion, is they're against gay marriage, homosexuality, and abortion. These are not acceptable in the Catholic faith. Every Catholic university in America, official position is that they're against gay marriage, homosexuality, and abortion. That's the official position. Obviously, the official position of the United Methodist Church is that they're against homosexuality, gay marriage, and abortion as well. And United Methodist Church is a mainline denomination. It's represented by Duke University, Northwestern University, Boston University, Claremont colleges in California, and Southern Methodist University. They're all against gay marriage and homosexuality and abortion. That's just their official stance, denominational stance. Because the Bible, obviously, Romans chapter 1 clearly opposes homosexuality. No Bible-believing Christian denomination which follows the Bible can oppose Romans 1, which condemns homosexuality and gay marriage. So obviously, United Methodist Church, Catholic Church, any church that's going to be Bible, respecting the Bible, supporting will oppose gay marriage and homosexuality. And so Georgetown University officially opposes gay marriage, homosexuality, and abortion. That's like in the charter. It's like in the Constitution, because it's a Catholic university. So if you push comes to shove, you push the Constitution, right? The bylaws, or the central tenet, which is the Holy Bible. Holy Bible opposes gay marriage. So there's no authority higher than the Holy Bible in the Catholic Church. Even the Pope has to submit to it. So So if you keep pushing, obviously you hit the wall of the church, the Holy Bible, whether it's United Methodist Church or Catholic Church or Presbyterian Church. Holy Bible is the ultimate authority of all churches. So anyway, so University of Pennsylvania, I had a wonderful time there. And my roommate, Ty Tomasetit and Ang Liang. Hey, I was going to see them all this alumni weekend. I'm pretty upset. And my other roommate was Kenneth Uy, and he's from Metro Manila in Dasmariñas village. That's his home. He lived right next to the U.S. ambassador in Dasmariñas village in Manila, and he's like a multimillionaire in the Philippines, but he's ethnically Chinese. But Kenneth Uy, U-Y, Uy. That's a very Chinese name. So yeah, he's a great guy. I really liked him. I met him in my first freshman seminar with Professor Heerak Conroy, who became my undergraduate advisor. He was an expert in Japan and Korea. And it was like, like world-renowned expert in Japan and Korea. And it was an undergraduate seminar. There were like 4 students there. And he said, write 4 papers in the semester, 5 pages. And Kenneth Uy was so intense. Like, he's like, he wrote 20 pages every time. And Professor Heerak Conroy gave him a B on each one. And this is like, made him like, this is, Professor Conroy said 5 pages. And you're like, most Asians don't understand that when Professor said 5 pages, it's 5 pages, And Kenneth, even a typical Asian thought, if you write more, do more work, you're gonna get an A. It doesn't really work out that way in America. If the professor says 5 pages, you have to have them 5 pages if you want an A. Yeah, so sometimes Asians from Asia learn the hard way, but anyway, yeah, so poor Kenneth, he got a B in that class. That was his only B at the University of Pennsylvania. He was a Warren finance major. And he had straight A's except for that one class, freshman. So he was my roommate. And I felt so bad because he graduated from University of Pennsylvania, wanted to work in New York. And he has one of these Asian hairs, Asian guys. Like I've seen it at Georgetown as well. There are these Asian guys who like are brilliant. They have 4.0, but their hair is like really bad. Like they don't like cut their hair right or comb their hair, grease their hair. I don't know what it is. Like they have bad hair. And like you will see this like in every Ivy League campus, like some brilliant Asian guy with bad hair, And Kenneth Uy was one of these guys. He's like multi-billionaire, but like white guys used to like not show him respect because they didn't think he had money, but he's like a multi-millionaire, He may even be a billionaire, but I mean, I know he's at least a millionaire, multi-millionaire from Philippines, but most Asians who come from Asia to study in the Ivy League, they're like millionaires. I mean, the question is, are they like petty millionaire or are they like multi-millionaire or the billionaire, So yeah, because I mean, it's hard to come to America, if you're from Asia. So yeah. But anyway, Kenneth Uy started working in New York, and he had that bad hair, and nobody knew he was a billionaire, or a millionaire. And Asian guys, they don't really talk about it, They are, but they don't, they don't look like it. They're kind of humble, And so because in Asian culture, you gotta kind of be humble. It's like very important value in Asian culture. If you got it flaunted, that's more California, it's not really Asia. Well, I mean, it could be Asia, like Singapore. I think you got it, you flaunt it. But like if you're an ethnic Chinese in Philippines or you're ethnic Chinese in Indonesia, you flaunt it, you die. Because it's not. I mean, Chinese are foreign to Filipinos are not Chinese. Indonesians are not Chinese. And Suchianto, my Indonesian Chinese friend, whose 10 uncles are all millionaires, he told me like there are waves of persecutions of Chinese businessmen and ethnic Chinese in Indonesia. They're like millionaires. And so they go out of their way not to flaunt their wealth. So I guess it's like a survival thing for ethnic Chinese who live in Philippines or Indonesia. It's not like Singapore is like it's like I think dominantly Chinese, ethnic Chinese. So you can flaunt it. You're not going to get killed generally. But I think Malaysia may be different. I don't know. I haven't really met, I've met ethnic Chinese from Malaysia. But we didn't really talk about this topic, But obviously you could flaunt it in like China and Hong Kong and Taiwan. Hong Kong definitely you could flaunt it. I don't know if you could flaunt it in China or Taiwan. I remember reading an article about Chinese students who went to Harvard and were driving on a Ferrari. These children of Chinese Red Army leaders who are billionaires now because Bill Clinton sold America out to China. They have billions of dollars, and so they they used to drive a Ferrari. They're just going through cash like paper. And the current president, he said, no, we don't want this. We don't want. We're a communist government. We're a socialist government. We cannot have our Chinese Red Army children at Harvard flaunting wealth like they're capitalists. So he like demoted all these billionaires in China, took over their wealth. Because it's a communist dictatorship. Gave their CEO position to other people, and like they had like a whole sweep cleaning in the Chinese Red Army. Like I think it was like maybe a decade ago. Because they could do that, and he used that opportunity to solidify his power in China. So his like power is unquestioned now. But yeah, he got rid of a lot of influential, powerful Chinese Red Army, Chinese Communist Party leaders whose children were flaunting their wealth at Harvard and Yale. He used that as a pretext or excuse to take their power and wealth away. So, I mean, you don't want to flaunt your wealth if you're in a communist dictatorship. So now Chinese billionaires who go to like Georgetown and University of Pennsylvania and Harvard, they live modestly because they don't want their parents to be, I think some of them were executed. I mean, it's a dictatorship. That's what they do. I mean, it's not a democracy. The Chinese Red Army can kill anybody they want. And they have nobody to answer to. It's one party communist dictatorship. So yeah, I think some of the heads flew literally like they're executed, and then their children are disgraced and they lose everything. So I think, so now the Chinese who are here, at Harvard, Georgetown, University of Pennsylvania, whose parents are billionaires in the Chinese Red Army, they probably are hiding the fact. You probably won't even find out if they're a billionaire. Usually they're not going to tell you because they've had that purge 10 years ago. But anyway, congratulations to everybody at University of Pennsylvania who are class of 2020 who are officially graduated as of today. Let's go to our death figures. Yes, since it's the University of Pennsylvania alumni weekend, and obviously, yay! Congratulations to University of Pennsylvania class of 2020. If you come to Washington D.C., make sure you let us know because I'm the vice president of Penn Club of D.C. I want you to be part of our alumni association. Our president is Todd, and he's a great guy. We have a great executive board team. You could visit us on Facebook. Our Facebook page is private, so you have to kind of apply. Obviously, we're going to let you in after we check your, data that you're actually an alumni. And then you can become part of University of Pennsylvania alumni community. And we have like President Trump and Tiffany Trump and Ivanka Trump. They're all alumni of University of Pennsylvania. And we have all these senators and House of Representatives, billionaires. I think it's a little bit snooty myself. I think we should just make the Facebook open. But I mean, I hope I'm not going to get in trouble for saying that. I mean, but a lot of things at University of Pennsylvania are very exclusive. You can't muscle your way in. Like you have to just be. I mean, like I've interviewed students for decades now, and I'm like powerful people at every level of Penn. So I'm not, I take it, just kind of at a stride, but I don't take it. I don't take these things too seriously like some people do, I mean, what I call like the nouveau riche, they take things too seriously. I have no money. I have no money. But like, my best friend at Cambridge, Martin Wood, I asked him, how would you describe me? And he said, you know what he said? And Martin Wood's he's royalty, right? He's like, you are august. And I said, what do you mean? You're kind of like a royal. You act like a royal. Like you don't give a beep, about anything, You treat nobles like if you're a royal. And I'm like, because I knew a lot of royals and nobles at Cambridge, right? So that's like Martin Wood. He's like, you're kind of like, you act like a royalty. And I'm like, well, I mean, my mother's mother and father were like Yangban, which is like a noble, in Pyongyang in North Korea before, when Korea was united, before it was separated into North Korea and South Korea. They were part of the Yangban noble family. So yeah, I guess I am noble. If North Korea did not become communist, I would, that would be part of my, legacy, right? A lot of important people came out of that noble line, like the first vice president of South Korea, or the vice president during 1950 to 1953 that came from that line, my relative. So, we still have a lot of politicians in Korea because, if you have a vice president, you're going to have a lot of politicians. So, yeah. So I have a uh, political leadership at the at the high levels in North Korea and South Korea because half of my relatives in North Korea decided to come down to South Korea because they supported democracy. So they're now leaders, their descendants are like leaders in the Korean government now. And there, half of my relatives so my mother's side, they liked Marxism because they felt like, it's like, they're like Bernie Sanders types, they want to give free stuff to everybody. Um, and so they stayed, they were, ideological, theoretical Marxists. So they stayed with Kim Il-sung, who's the first president of North Korea, communist dictatorship. So I have relatives on both sides of the government who are in the top government leadership right now. So yeah, so I mean, I don't contact the other side, and as far as I know, no one in my family has contacted the other side, because there's kind of a barrier there. Um, but they know who I am. I don't know who they are, but they know who I am. The leaders in South Korean government and North Korean government. I mean the North Korean government. They yeah. I mean because we I mean there is this movement called March First movement. This was during the Japanese occupation of Korea during 1910 to 1945. So there was this March First movement, Hamil Undong, and all the Korean leaders marched that time. And out of that leadership came South Korean government leadership and North Korean government leadership. So they're all friends. But some of them subscribe to capitalism, some of them subscribe to Marxism. And so when South Korea and North Korea was divided, that's when they kind of parted company with their friends and they kind of attached themselves, the ones who supported capitalism and democracy, like my granduncle or my mom's uncle who became the vice president of Korea. Um, he attached himself to like Korean government here, and then the alliance with the United States. My other relatives who are more socialist, like Bernie, they attached themselves to Moscow. So they attached themselves to the leadership there. And I remember growing up, I used to get Christmas cards. Our family, my dad used to get Christmas cards from President Chun Doo-hwan. President John, my mom's last name is John. So my mother's father is John, and my mother's maiden name is Ham. So these are very influential political families. So President Chun Doo-hwan, President John, who assassinated President Park with the help of the CIA, that's the understanding among most Koreans, and then took over the government because people were afraid that President Park was too friendly with North Korea. That's the impression that CIA and U.S. government had. So the way the Koreans understand in the narrative is that CIA wanted a regime change with somebody who was more loyal to United States, because they were afraid like President Park was becoming too socialist because he had this Semaul Undong. It's like a farm revitalization movement, and it was modeled after Moscow version. And so, you know, a lot of American were kind of getting nervous at that time. And it was like around the McCarthy era, you know, and legacies were kind of still kind of remnant. And so, um, you know, there were like very conservative McCarthy type CIA agents, and you know they wanted a regime change, so they used John Doohan, who was a general at the time, to assassinate President Park, like at the Blue House. I think it was assassinated at the Blue House, like just like a point blank range, because he was like the like a general or head of KCIA, like I think it was a general. So it was like Joint Chiefs of Staff, and he just like killed President Park at point blank range, and then he became president. So it was a kind of a coup d'état, you know. But transition was fairly smooth. However, because you know there were, you know, I think there were factions that were kind of doubting President Park's, you know, President Park. There was high suspicion against communist North Koreans. That generation was very anti-communist because of the Korean War that killed a lot of Koreans, so South Koreans, and so I think that kind of helped President Chun. And so President Chun sent my parents like Christmas card every year. Yeah, so yeah, but my parents are like, always deny your connection to President Chun because he was hated by the Korean people for being a dictator. And he like pocketed billions of dollars. You know, every Korean president pocketed billions of dollars and put in Swiss bank account. They're all like corrupt. You know, because like who's watching, right? It's like if you're a third world nation, you know, with billions. I mean, I bet every president in third world country they pocketed billions and put it in a Swiss bank account. You know, I wouldn't doubt it. You know, I know every Korean president did. So when I had my company, learning company in New Jersey and New York, I talked to you about that. I had a student who I guess it was like actually a descendant of President Park, I think. And her father used to go to Brazil and fly back with like bags of cash. Like, you know, I guess I shouldn't tell you this, but I'm not telling you her name, so nobody's gonna find out. And I destroyed all records, you know, when I moved over here, I destroyed all the records so nobody could find them. So you don't know who that person is. But anyway, yeah, so you know, Koreans have like these connection throughout the world, and they cash the monies there. So, but you know, when I was at University of Pennsylvania, son of President Chun Doo-hwan was at University of Pennsylvania. I guess he's like a distant relative, you know. And so, so he started H Mart, H Mart in like this food market all throughout the country, in that which Koreans use. It's like a Korean market, H Mart. You have that in Fairfax County. You have that like all over Virginia. Yeah, that was started by President Chun Doo-hwan's son, from what I understand, who was at University of Pennsylvania. I think he was like a senior when I was a freshman. But yeah, so I mean, Korea is a small country, you know, and you know if you have powerful people, they kind of know you, you know. So like you know, when I had my learning center in New York and New Jersey, I taught children of or descendants of President John, President Parr, you know, Samsung billionaire children, LG billionaire children, or their descendants or their relatives, you know, because my learning center was one of the best, you know, I would say was the best, but so I educated the elites of the Korean society. Yeah, but anyway, yeah, you know, I mean, you know, I guess I do have that kind of elite, you know, connection, you know. But who cares? I mean, geez, it's not that important to me, you know. But anyway, yeah. Um, so yeah, I mean, you know, when I was president of the Cambridge University Korean Society, yes, I was the president of Cambridge University Korean Society. I'm a leader of Koreans, you know, wherever I go. So when I was the president of Cambridge University Korean Society, we held a Korea conference, and then we invited the daughter of President Park, who later became president of South Korea. So I just share, you know, my photo with her with you. So yeah, she was trained in Paris, and then she went back to Korea, and then she became a congressman or senator, and then she became president. And so and her descendant was at Cambridge. She was really pretty. And you know, so I was the president of Cambridge University Korean Society. And while I was at Cambridge University, there were a lot of President Kim Dae-jung. President Kim Dae-jung's, you know, President Kim Dae-jung, according to the story that we have, is that CIA attempted execution of President Kim Dae-jung 3 times. So if you study the history of South Korea, we have this trend in South Korea where you have the kind of socialist faction, what we call like the Bernie Sanders factions, and then you have the aggressive anti-communist factions. So President Chun Doo-hwan, you know, I guess my distant relative, was the anti-communist faction that assassinated President Park at point blank range at the Blue House, which is like the White House. Because President Park was like kind of Moscow friendly. He wasn't really Moscow friendly, but that's the image that he had in the CIA and the US intelligence community at that time. So that's why the story goes, they backed up, you know, my relative President John to assassinate President Park and have a regime change. And it wasn't that, it was fairly smooth because President John was in the military. As I told you, like my cousins from that side of the family, the President John side, the John side of the family, came to Baltimore. The first police sergeant in Baltimore is my uncle, like my mom's cousin. And that side of the family all went to like West Point, you know, Naval Academy, Air Force, military, you know, CIA, you know, CIA, FBI, you know, NSA. So that's the side of the family because they understand the value of military power because of President Chan, you know that. Because you could enter power in government through military or through civilian life. President Chan obviously entered through military life, you know. So that Baltimore side of my relatives are kind of very much into NSA, you know, CIA, you know, FBI, you know, police department, you know, they're like, you know, they've kind of gone through that channel. But you know, they said President John was able to transition normally because he had the military. He controlled the military. And that's the reason why the CIA and US covert operations backed him to assassinate President Park. Because President Park was also a military general, but after becoming president, he became removed from military. So he was removed enough that he didn't really have loyalists that he could count on. You know, you have to be physically there to have the loyalty of the military, right? It's anybody who has been to the military know, like, there is a chain of command, but there's a loyalty tied to serving together, fighting together, and like chain of command that's right there with you, you know. So, and that chain of command continues all the way to the 5-star general. And so if you're outside of the military system, you know, you can't count on the loyalty really, especially if you've been out for years. So anybody in the military establishment understands that principle. And so that's why President John was able to assassinate President Park. He had the military behind him. And military in third world countries are dominant. If you have the military, you have the country. And that's why you have the Musharraf, who was a general of the Pakistani government, he was able to become president. You have the military, you have the government. That's like every third world country is like that. And it's probably like that in South America as well, in third world countries. It may not be so much like that in Brazil and Argentina, which are like second world countries, they're saying. But even in some second world countries, if you have the military, you have the government. And that's why in South Korea, even in Britain, you make a point of sending some of your children to the military. Because if you touch reality, if you touch the connection with the military, you lose that. You can lose your power, and that's been since beginning of time, right? In the Asian civilization and Western civilization, kings had to fight in a war with its commanders, right? I mean, sometimes kings were betrayed by their commanders, like Shakespeare's play Macbeth, right? He was slaughtered by his own right-hand man, right? Macbeth, if you read the play. I mean, when I was in England, I used to go see these plays. Shakespearean plays that were performed was great. But when I was in England, I was an executive board member of the University of Pennsylvania Alumni Association of United Kingdom. Yes. Yes. I've been everywhere. My hand is everywhere. University of Pennsylvania, So when I was at University of Pennsylvania, the Alumni Club of University of Pennsylvania is the biggest one outside of United States. And because it's in London, it has the most powerful and influential American and European alumni who are like in the financial sector. And London is also the center of British royalty and nobility. And so it was an influential. And so we rented a British museum for our alumni event, invited president to come, and we had a big thing. So as an executive board member of the University of Pennsylvania Alumni Association of United Kingdom, I threw some events, and one of the events that I threw was at Jesus College, where I was, Jesus College, Cambridge, and you've seen photos of that in the last, show a couple days ago. So you could go back and watch that show. It's a daily show. And you should subscribe to this YouTube channel so you can keep up. So I invited them, and you see the University of Pennsylvania emblem next to Jesus College emblem. So these are like very distinguished University of Pennsylvania alumni. Some are American, some are European. Some of you in powerful positions may recognize them. Like the guy on the second photo, he was the vice president of Deutsche Bank. He was like 32, graduate from Wharton. A lot of Wharton graduates become vice president of big corporations by the time they're like 32, 33. They become CEO of big companies by the time they're 40. Generally, you want to be like a vice president by your early 30s. If you're not vice president by your early 30s, you've kind of failed in life as a corporate person. Because think about this, you graduate from Georgetown University at age 22, you work for 2 years, like for Goldman and Sachs or, McKinsey Consulting. Now you're 24. So you put in 2 years, right? And then you go for your MBA at Harvard Business School or Stanford Business School or Wharton Business School, right? These are three best. And then it's a 2-year program, you come out, you're like 26. Average starting salary for Wharton MBA is like $300,000 a year, because generally all of them go into management, right? So at 26, you should go into upper management, like middle management that will put you in position to become a vice president. So you start working at 26 as middle management, and ideally you want to be married by then, because they're not going to generally promote you to vice president if you're not married, because business world is very conservative. Husband and wife meet like other husband and wife, and this happens globally. So if you're not married, it's hard for you to advance in corporate structures. in America, and that's the case in Brazil, the case in Germany. If you're not married, you're not going to become the vice president in most companies because they don't because their argument logic is this, right? A single guy who's not married can run away with company's assets because he has nothing to tie him down. But if the guy is married and has children, he's not going to run off with company money. He's not going to take risks that's going to jeopardize his children. So there's a logic to it. So if there's a single guy or a single woman, they don't want to take a chance on you because you could take risks because the only person you have to worry about is yourself. So the most important thing for a woman or a guy to do who wants to become vice president or CEO or president of a company is to get married. Because if you're not married, they're not going to promote you because they don't trust you, because there are three logical arguments, right? If you're married, then there's something tying you down, especially with your kids. Obviously, you should have kids. So you're tied down so they could trust you. With company money, they know you're not going to risk your children's life. Some do, but I mean, that's an exception. They know you're not going to risk your children, your family happiness by quote screwing the company over. So they want married people, whether man or a woman. So you should get married by the time you're 26 if you want to advance. Because if you're not married, you're not going to advance. They're not going to promote you. Number two, if you're married, then the company thinks, oh, that's a recommendation. If a woman is willing to marry a guy for the rest of her life, then obviously he is trustworthy. In terms that's like a character recommendation. Woman willing to marry this guy or guy wanting to marry this woman means that this person sees something of value in this other person to commit his or her life permanently. So if you're not married, companies will be like, she's 27 and she's not married. She has a Harvard bachelor's and a Stanford MBA, but something is wrong with her because guys don't want to marry her. So that, you're going to hit a wall. It's not because you're a woman. It's because you're not married. Like all these feminazis, they want to say, well, women get paid less, women get promotions less. I assure you, guys who are single get paid less. Guys who are single get promoted less as well. So women have a skewed hypersensitive way of looking at the world. But it's not just because you're a woman, because it's because you're not married or you're divorced, right? Because if you're divorced, that means like you failed in marriage. Most companies don't want a woman who failed in marriage to manage their $1 billion asset. Because if you're going to fail in marriage, you're probably going to fail in other aspects of life. So if you're a divorced woman, chances are you're not going to be promoted in a company setting. Because they're like, you failed in marriage, so you're probably going to fail in this company. You're not good with relationships. The proof is that you're divorced. If you're really good with relationships, with social emotional understanding, you will not be divorced. The fact that you are divorced is proof positive that you are not good at social emotional understanding at relationships. Because by definition, you're divorced, which means your communication with your husband, you committed your whole life to, broke down, which means you're not good at communicating. You're not good at understanding or empathy. Because if you were, you would not be divorced. So most companies will not promote divorced women to the highest positions of power. They will be reluctant to do that. And that's the reason why there aren't too many women in high positions, not because they are discriminating against women. They're discriminating against people who failed in life, whether it's failed in marriage. Divorce is a failure in marriage. Even men who are divorced will not hire divorced women generally for the same reason, because they're like, well, I got divorced, but I consider that my flaw. I don't want to hire people who failed in their marriage, because we're talking about billions of dollars in assets, just because I failed marriage, I'm the exception, That's how a lot of CEOs think, and so succeeding in marriage is very important, especially if you need to get promotions, because they're generally not going to promote divorced people. I mean, there are a lot of companies, medium-sized companies, small-sized company, large-sized companies. The idea is like a divorced woman will divorce the company if it doesn't suit her interest, or a divorced man as well. So divorced people are not highly respected, and that's why they say a lot of single women who are divorced enter the poverty line, like single mothers. And that's like for white women as well as Hispanic women, as well as Asian women, as well as Black women. Like women who get divorced, they enter the poverty line. Yeah, there are a lot of white women who are divorced in white suburban areas who enter the poverty line because they're not going to get the promotions because they failed in marriage. And the companies they work for will not promote them. Sometimes they'll lay them off or fire them if they're single. That's what they do with single people, right? When they lay off people, they lay off single people first. So if you're single by divorce, you're still single. So they're going to lay you off first, men and women, right? Married people, they lay off the last because they're like, if we lay off this married person, children can starve. We're not monsters. So if people are similar in skill, we're going to lay off the single people first. Then we're going to lay off the divorced people first. So there's another incentive why you should get married by the time you're 26, because companies lay off single people first. Yeah, and so so that's what happens. But anyway, generally you'd want to be vice president by the time you're 20, like 30, 32. And he was like 32 and vice president of Deutsche Bank, consulting sector in Europe. And that's normal. I mean, if you're not vice president of a big company, by the time you're 32, you failed in the business world. I mean, that's how it worked. When you get together with the University of Pennsylvania Alumni Association, and you're like 32 and you're like still consultant, like you're a loser because everyone else is a vice president somewhere, and like you wouldn't come to the reunion, if you're like 32 and you're not a vice president somewhere. It's embarrassing. Yeah, so I mean, we're talking about the highest echelons of power, right? University of Pennsylvania is the Ivy League, right? And there are only like X number of Ivy Leagues. And Harvard and University of Pennsylvania produced the most number of billionaires in America who weren't billionaires when they came to University of Pennsylvania or went to Harvard. And so, like, you have to be an overachiever. Like, if you're not vice president by the time you're 32 in your 10th year reunion, I mean, it's a little embarrassing if you went to Wharton. I mean, you could still go to your alumni event, but it's embarrassing, So you do have a lot of people who don't come because they're not like senior management. You definitely have to be at least a middle management, But generally, by 32, most University of Pennsylvania alumni are like vice president or president or CEO, or they founded their own company. If you're not one of these, you're not going to be able to like hold your head up on high on your 10th year reunion at University of Pennsylvania. It's just, and so yeah, it's a university with a bunch of overachievers, I mean, every year 4,000 ranked ones get rejected because University of Pennsylvania don't think they're good enough. They're going to turn out to be vice president by the time they're 32. If the admissions office at University of Pennsylvania doesn't think that you have the capacity to become a vice president of a big company or medium-sized company at age 32, they're not going to accept you. Simple as that. Even if you have 4.0, you have to show them that you have that ability to become the vice president at age 32. I mean, that's what I see. When I interview high school students, they're all smart. They're all like rank 1, rank 2. But if I see that they're not going to be like vice president by the time they're 32, I say reject this guy or reject this woman. Yeah, you have to show me that you have the capacity to become a vice president by the time you're 32. Or, you have to be able to achieve something great and amazing, in 10 years after you graduate from University of Pennsylvania. Or why would we want to invest our energy and time and effort on you as an undergraduate at University of Pennsylvania? There's no point. Like, if you want to just live a mediocre life, go to like University of Delaware Don't come to University of Pennsylvania. It's a waste of money for you if you just want to be mediocre. You know, I mean, don't go to University of Pennsylvania if you just want to be mediocre. You know, if I hear like an applicant saying, "Oh, I want to go to University of Pennsylvania, and I want to work for an NGO, and I don't know what I'm going to do after that," it's like reject. I mean, if you want to work for an NGO, go to Temple University or like, like George Washington University. Don't go to an Ivy League university, spend all that money. We don't want people to be like working for NGO, and unless like if you say like you want to start an NGO and you show me the proof that you are capable of starting an NGO within a few years after you graduate from university and you become like head of an NGO that is global, yeah, I'll accept you. I'll tell the admissions office accept this person. But if you come to me with 4.0, you're valedictorian, you're like, I was the president of the environmental society. I was the president of the football team. I was the president of multicultural society. La-di-da. Everybody does that. Who doesn't do that? Who applied to University of Pennsylvania? All 30,000 applicants say the same thing. They're all president of like at least 3 clubs. Tell me something new. And then you tell me like, oh yeah, I want to go to University of Pennsylvania, study environmental science, and I just want to like work for an NGO in Washington, D.C. Reject. Because you're like a beta guy who looks like an alpha guy because you have 4.0 and you're president of 3 clubs, but you're actually a beta guy because you want to work in an NGO under somebody. Like you don't want to be the leader leading. You want to work under somebody. You're a beta. You're not an alpha. So you're going to be rejected. I'm not going to recommend you for acceptance at University of Pennsylvania's admissions office. If when you're a beta guy or a gamma guy, same with the women. If you're like a beta woman or a gamma woman, I'm not going to be recommending you to be accepted at University of Pennsylvania. Are you kidding me? I mean, we only, our class every year is like 2,000. We're not going to waste our space on people who want to major in environmental science and the volunteer or work for an environmental agency somewhere. I mean, geez, you could do that going to like Penn State University or Virginia Commonwealth University. I mean, geez, if you want to come to University of Pennsylvania, you better be telling me that you want to become a president of the United States, you want to become a senator, you want to become a House of Representative member, you want to start your own company, you want to be CEO of Tesla, or you want to be CEO of Microsoft. I mean, if you're not talking like this, forget it. Don't even apply to them. You're wasting my time. I mean, you're wasting our time. I mean, we have like 38,000 applicants. We can only accept like 3,000. I mean, geez, tell us something that we want to hear, like that you're an alpha male or you're an alpha female. Don't tell us like you're like a beta or gamma or delta male who happens to have straight A's or who happens to be valedictorian. Valedictorian does not alpha male make. I mean, a lot of valedictorians were like losers, and so if you want to do something important, I mean, show us that you can lead people, that you could gain the respect of your peers. You got to be able to show me that you're a born leader. You don't have to be a born leader. We prefer a born leader who tries hard to be a leader, because you have nature and nurture going for you. We don't want just nurture. We want nature and nurture. It's kind of like, it's like that in every community, right? You have Malcolm X, who's like nurture and nature. He was a thug, gangsta, he ruled his gangster world before he went to jail. He went to jail, then he became like what? Nation of Islam leader. Like he's an alpha male when he was a gangster. He was an alpha male when he was in prison. He's an alpha male when he came out of prison. He led like Nation of Islam. We want alpha males. Whether you're gonna be head of a gang, or head of a whatever. We want alpha males. Obviously, we want you to do good, but alpha males are alpha males, whether they're in the criminal world or in the FBI or in the business world. Alpha males are alpha males, right? And some of them just been dealt a bad luck. And that's why they become alpha males in like gangster world, which is unfortunate. Obviously, he shouldn't stay in the gangster world to get out of it. But my point is this, if you're going to be applying to like University of Pennsylvania, don't be a beta guy, and we don't want you. Just stay at home, go to your local school, local college. And if you want to come to University of Pennsylvania, we want an alpha male. We want people who want to be president of the United States, like Trump. We want people who want to be senator of their state. We want people who we don't like people who are just going to volunteer for NGOs and stuff. I mean, what losers, That's like, I mean, that's like being a loser. Like, what, you want to like volunteer? Isn't that what you do in high school? You want to volunteer as an adult, like for a full-time job? Oh my gosh! I mean, that's ridiculous. That's embarrassing. I mean, you volunteer in middle school, high school, maybe college. Although in college you should be working to become a president of a company somewhere. Or you're gonna take a year and 2 years off to volunteer for something. Jeez, man, what a loser. So yeah, I mean, you can volunteer on Saturdays while you're being a CEO of a big company. I mean, why do you have to like waste your life volunteering for something that anybody could do? I mean, you've wasted our time. We've wasted our education. You could volunteer for stuff, going to like a community college and then graduate from no-name college with a bachelor's. You may be more effective as a volunteer. We want leaders, right? University of Pennsylvania, we don't want like people who like volunteer and become nobodies. We want people who are going to become somebodies. And so, yeah, only those people who want to become somebody should apply to University of Pennsylvania, because why would you want to spend all that money? It's like a $300,000 education. Why would you want to spend $300,000 if you don't want to be like somebody? Right? And we're going to give you scholarship if your parents make under $100,000. Why should we waste our $300,000 paying for your tuition, room, and board if you don't want to be somebody? You just want to be nobody. You could be nobody going to like no-name college. So why should we give you a $300,000 scholarship, pay for you? I mean, if you're going to come from an inner city neighborhood, you better be an alpha male. I mean, you got to show me you're an alpha male, right? You're not getting in. We're not going to be spending $300,000 on you. What, just because you're poor, we got to give you money? Doesn't make sense. There are a lot of people who are poor. We want a poor person who's an alpha male in the making or could prove that he's an alpha male. Jeez, you think like inner city don't have alpha males? Of course inner city have alpha males. We just need to see that we want to accept the inner city alpha males at University of Pennsylvania. Yes, if you're an inner city alpha male, apply. We'll give you $300,000 because we see that you're an alpha male, right? You've been dealt a bad card, but you're an alpha male. We're gonna train you and we're gonna make you into a senator. I mean, geez, give us something that proves that you're an alpha, right? Because we don't want a beta or gamma. So yeah. Anyway, so I had I invited all these important and powerful people in University of Pennsylvania alumni to Jesus College, and I organized a formal hall for them. So we had a formal hall dinner, and then I entertained them at Jesus College bar and gave them a tour, and they went on their happy merry way. Yeah, so these are photos to prove it. Yeah, and again, God loves me. What can I say? So our COVID-19 death is around 800 as we celebrate University of Pennsylvania commencement today. Obviously, I was going to be there physically because I'm the organizer, one of the organizers for our alumni weekend at University of Pennsylvania. And I was going to be there celebrating this important momentous alumni weekend. But God's comforted me with a reduced death rate for COVID. But it's probably going to go up again later in the week, but God does love me. What can I say? Let's look at the death rate in Latin America. Brazil, our strongest ally in Latin America, is number one with 255,368 cases. And the number of deaths is the greatest, 16,853. I guarantee it. You know my theory. My theory is that COVID-19 is a preemptive strike by China and Russia using their advanced biological weapon against United States and our allies. Our strongest ally in Europe, United Kingdom, has the greatest number of deaths. Our strongest ally, Brazil, has the greatest number of deaths. You think this is a coincidence? No, I don't think so. It's a preemptive biological strike. Because obviously, for China and Russia to rise to power, they have to destroy the United States and all our allies. So they're targeting allies. Yeah. So so Brazil has 16,853 deaths, and so it's like 7% of people who get cases die. Peru has 94,933 cases at number 2. Obviously, Peru is not an ally of the United States, and so they don't really have that many cases or death. Their death is at 2,789 deaths, 3%. Mexico, I mean, it's closer to us. You know, they do some of our product management and product manufacturing. So their death rate is a little bit high. 49,219 is the number of cases. Number of death is 5,177. 10% of the cases are ending up in death. So I would say, China and Russia are strategic and kind of targeting our friends, not our enemies. Chile is not necessarily our ally, really. I mean, Chile can be close to China or Russia. They have 46,059 cases and 478 deaths. 1% of the people are dying. Ecuador is number 5 at 33,582 cases, and their death is at 2,799. It's not that much. 88% of the cases end up in death. Now, it is a celebration time. Yay, graduation time at University of Pennsylvania. Congratulations to the graduating class of 2020 at University of Pennsylvania. Some of you I've interviewed. Yeah, some of you I've interviewed 4 years ago. So congratulations, especially to you. You know what happened at one of the events at Washington, D.C., our annual breakfast? This one guy came up to me and he's like, oh, hey. And he's like, yeah, you interviewed me for University of Pennsylvania when I was a high school senior. I'm like, really? I didn't remember him. I mean, I interview like 23 people or more every year. And he's like, yeah, you interviewed me. And I really, that interview made me decide to go to Penn. I'm like, great, I'm excited you're here. So he came to one of our events, Washington, D.C. So since, I've been doing this for a while, so a lot of people, who got interviewed by me, and so, So anyway, I'm hoping that we will have a Christian president, because we have like so many Jewish presidents at University of Pennsylvania. It's ridiculous. It's like we don't live in a Jewish nation. This is a Christian nation. Majority of the alumni are Christians. Yes, people call University of Pennsylvania Jewish Ivy League, and they say supposedly like 30 to 40% are Jewish, but that also includes Jewish Christians. Majority of the alumni, we have like 100,000 alumni around the world. Majority of the alumni are Christians. So I'm hoping that we will have a president who's a Christian. I mean, why do we have like Jewish president after Jewish president after Jewish president? Doesn't make sense. I'm Christian. I like to see a Christian president. I think it's only fair. After like 2-3 Jewish presidents in a row, I think we should have a Christian president. I think I'm going to write to the board, University of Pennsylvania board, the executive board about this, because I think there's something fishy going on. Or maybe I'll just talk to my fellow alumni, Yeah, I have a lot of them that I could talk to. Yeah, but anyway, I mean, I think fair is fair, I don't think it's right that you have like several Jewish presidents in a row. I think the last president who wasn't a Jew is Sheldon Hackney. Sheldon Hackney was president when I was at Penn, and he went on to become head of the National Endowment for Humanities. And get this, I went to a United Methodist Church in Hopewell, Virginia, and I met the Hackneys. Yeah, I think they're like cousins or something, or relatives. But small world, right? But anyway, yeah. So we had a European Association of Biblical Studies conference in Estonia. This was a while ago. You know, I'm a member of the European Association for Biblical Studies, and I shared a photo with you from the European Association of Biblical Studies conference in Poland. So you can see that episode. So, you know, I went to European Association of Biblical Studies conference in Estonia and presented my paper. And it was held at University of Tartu, which is the Harvard of Estonia. Estonia is a former Soviet Union Republic nation that is like right near Finland. And people are considered to be like Scandinavians, although they say the Estonian as a language is more like I guess like Bulgarian. So they may not necessarily be Scandinavian. Some say they may be Slavic, or you know, more Eastern European. So so I'm not sure. You know, they're all Lutheran. 100% of the country is Lutheran. So it's one of the, it may be the only Lutheran former USSR country. But yeah, it's like Lutheran like all the other Scandinavian countries. So they may be Scandinavian. I'm not sure, you know. They say they're Scandinavian. All the Estonians that I met said they're Scandinavian, not Slavic. So yeah, I mean, I should take their word for it, right? So I went to this conference, and it was like a week long. So I was there like for a week, maybe a little bit longer than a week. He likes conferences. Harry likes conferences. He's an intelligent owl. He loves conferences. Right, Harry? Yeah, Harry loves conferences. But anyway, so I delivered my paper on Jewish studies. You know, I'm a leading expert on Jewish studies, especially as relating to identity issues. What is it to be a Jew? How does Jewish communities interact with non-Jewish communities? What are the steps that they take to defend themselves against non-Jews during times of peace, during times of hostility, during times of war? You know, I'm an expert in things like that. You know, identity, group dynamics, us versus them, conflict, war. Yeah, that's my field. I love wars that happen, you know, because you get to examine like different sides, you know. What steps do this side, this group take, and what response does that group take? You know, I wanted to be a professor of CIA because I love conflicts in history. That's my expertise, right? Identity conflict, right? Us versus them. Who am I? Who are you? Who are we? Who are they? You know, that's my field of expertise. And so, yeah, that's why I applied to be a professor at CIA, because I would enjoy subverting governments. You know, that I think that'd be so fun. Let's subvert that government. Let's subvert that government. Let's have a regime change in that government. That's like the funnest thing in history, regime changes. So I wanted to go to CIA and train CIA agents on how to do regime changes around the world. You know, through soft diplomacy and hard diplomacy. Some countries can be changed, have regime change without any bullet fired, like Eastern Europe, like Eastern Germany. Some countries require a lot of bullets fired, you know, with a lot of military engagement. You know, history is so fun, you know, because especially regime change, you know, and so, and you know, so I wanted to train, you know, CIA agents on being able to understand what regime change is and be agents of regime change. You know, how do they bring about regime change with least amount of effort and with least amount of casualty to our side, U.S. You know, when you're changing regimes, you don't really think about how many people are going to die, you know, in that country, right? Or you should not become a CIA agent. Obviously, I mean, CIA agents risk their life, but they also, you know, risk lives of other people in order to defend America. That's what CIA does. So if you have a problem with killing a lot of people in foreign countries to defend U.S. interests, you should not join the CIA, because that's what they do. So I wanted to be a professor of CIA because I wanted to teach CIA agents how most effectively to manipulate foreign populations to change the regime at the expense of their own lives. You know, that's what CIA, I mean, right? Because you don't want to use U.S. forces to do regime change, because that kills U.S. citizen lives. So what you want to do is go to a country like Estonia motivate Estonians to do regime change, and that may kill 1 million Estonians, but hey, they're not US citizens. And then if the regime changes, then you've succeeded, you know? I mean, you're going to have collateral damage, whether it's a 1 million Estonians who seek to redeem change, right? I mean, you're not going to join the CIA if you have problem with 1 million Estonians dying in order to bring about regime change that's going to benefit the United States. Don't join the CIA, right? If you have a problem with that. Yeah, so the point is, I wanted to be professor of CIA to show how effectively CIA agents can engage in this kind of regime change, you know? So that's my field of expertise as a historian. That's what I study, you know, how the regimes change, why do they change, what are the causes and effects involved at the bureaucratic level, at the diplomatic level, at the military level, at the institutional levels, and there are different competing institutions, at intellectual levels, ideological levels, what are the propaganda warfare that are accidental, intentional, passive, active. That's my field of expertise. I'm a historian who studies that. And that's what makes me one of the leading experts in the world in propaganda warfare, ideological warfare, regime change. You know, that's why I applied to be a CIA professor, to make our CIA agents effective in bringing about regime change, whether it's peaceful or violent, you know. As I said, you know, if you have a problem with killing, don't join the US military. If you have, you know, killing our enemies. If you have a problem killing our enemies, don't join the CIA. That's what we do, right? In order to defend US interests, we're willing to kill millions of people, or we're willing to have millions of people sacrifice their own lives to make our country secure. That's what CIA and NSA does. So if you have a problem with that, don't join CIA. I mean, you see, ethics is different from, you know, like ethics is different. With the US military, ethics is, priority ethics is how do we defend the security of the United States of America and the lives of US citizens. To accomplish that, US military is willing to kill millions and millions and millions of people. And that's why United States dropped the atom bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, because they strategized that and assessed that that was the way to end the war that could potentially kill a lot of Americans, right? So they're willing to kill 100,000 civilians in each city, 200,000 civilians to end the war that could kill our civilians. And that's why none of our civilians died, right? And that's the kind of decision the military has to make. And that's the ethics, right? And you as a civilian may say, well, it's wrong to drop an atom bomb. Well, yeah, who doesn't know that? It's wrong to kill, right? I mean, you shouldn't kill anybody if you could help it. But because we live in a sinful world, people are going to kill each other. So US military has an obligation to protect our nation against our enemies, whether they're Russia or China. And defending our nation in time of war requires killing the enemy. I mean, you know, you can't escape that. That's just nature of war. It was like that during the Crusades when Christian Templar Knights went. They had to kill. They're like all priests. They're all like priests. They're killing. Jesuit priests killed to defend the Christian faith. You know, in time of war, that's what they do. I mean, in times of war, soldiers fight. And, you know, founder of Jesuits was a soldier, right? So obviously he killed a lot of people before he became a Jesuit priest. And you know, Jesuit order protected the Christian faith through different types of creative ways, you know? And so CIA, like, you know, when a military person kills the enemy soldier, it's not murder. They don't have to repent to ask for forgiveness. So let's say US goes to war with China and US soldiers kill Chinese soldiers. That's not murder. They kill, but that's not sin, because killing in times of war to defend your own country is allowed. And we see that in Book of Joshua. We see that in Book of Romans. Government does not wear a sword for nothing. That's traditionally interpreted by the Catholic Church, Martin Luther, John Calvin, same way. So soldiers killing in time of war, enemy combatant is not sin. You don't have to ask God for forgiveness. You don't have to ask. You don't have to go to your confessions after killing 10,000 soldiers on the enemy side. Same with the Chinese army, right? If there's a Christian who's fighting for the Chinese army and he kills his enemies, 10,000, he doesn't have to repent. It's not sin. If you look at it this way, during Middle Ages, there were Christian nations killing Christian nations. Christian nations fighting Christian nations. Spain had war against, or France had war against England. They're both Christian nations. All the soldiers are Christian. They're killing each other, Christians. That's not sin. So French Christians who are killing English Christians don't have to repent. English Christians killing French Christians in a time of war don't have to repent. It's not sin. You see what I mean? So for me, I have no problem teaching CIA agents to overturn regimes, to motivate citizens, let's say, of Venezuela to rise up and destroy president of Venezuela. And at the end of the day or end of the year, 1 million Venezuelans die. I have no problem with that. Life belongs to the Lord. God giveth, God takes it away. I'm trying to defend United States, and Venezuela is a threat to United States. I'll send my CIA agents out there to kill whoever they need to motivate whoever they need to start a civil war or revolution in Venezuela, to have a regime change. 1 million Venezuelans die. That happens. It's part of the conflict. And so ethical system that is used in the CIA is completely different from ethical system in the US. Well, it's not completely different. Ethical system in the CIA is completely different from ethical system, let's say, at your workplace. Right? Because you're at work, right? You're not trying to defend the nation. You're trying to produce, 10,000 cars in a month. So ethical questions that you deal with are completely different than ethical questions that is relevant for FBI, NSA, and U.S. military, right? And and obviously I know my Bible very well, and I can say with complete confidence, when soldiers kill enemies in war, that's not sin. You do not have to repent. God doesn't consider it a sin. And so that's always been that way since the beginning of time. Soldiers killing in the wars, their enemies, never consider sin. Obviously, if you're killing your own army or you're killing people who are not at war with you, then there's a problem. But or they don't have to be at war, but they have to be your enemy. Like, so, for example, we're not at war with Venezuela, but if I, as a CIA professor or director, sends out, let's say, my operatives to cause a regime change by motivating the population to rise up, and then we supply Venezuelans with weapons, although we do not provide them with military support, and they use U.S. provided weapons to kill a lot of people, and many people die. At the end of the revolution, 1 million people are dead. A lot of damage. And so you cannot weep for them, really. I mean, yeah, you can weep for them if you want. I'm not going to weep for them because I expected that to happen. If I send CIA agents to do what I plan to do, and the result is what I foresee happening, why should I cry for that? You know what I'm saying? And so some people don't understand ethics as it pertains to military. And obviously, the Catholic Church for 2,000 years have written on this. So if you go to Vatican Library in Rome, you'll find books after books from the 1st century all the way till now on this question. They're all agreed. Soldier killing in a war is not sin. So, and that's agreed in United Methodist Church, Presbyterian Church, Baptist Church, So let's go to the topic that you are wondering about. Civil war in the United States. Yes, because the Confederate Army has become a separate nation, and the Union Army is an enemy nation. When Virginians who are part of the Confederate Army kills Union soldiers, that's not sin. You don't have to repent. In fact, one of my favorite heroes of Civil War, Stonewall Jackson, he was a Presbyterian, devout Presbyterian. He said, I kill Union soldiers because it's a calling from God. For me to defend my family in Virginia and my relatives in Virginia, I'm going to kill as if that is my calling in life. It is his calling. He's a soldier. He's a West Point graduate who commands Confederate soldiers in a war to defend Virginians from death, right? Because it's a war. So he said, my Christian faith propels me to kill Union soldiers. That's my Christian faith. And it's true. It doesn't matter what side you're on. You're defending your community, your nation, whatever your nation is. So every Union soldier that Stonewall Jackson killed, that's not murder, because he's a soldier. Soldiers kill. He was trying to defend Virginia. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, Union won. That's why they're saying Confederacy is evil. But Confederacy did not call themselves evil. You see what I mean? Winners always rewrite the history. So I tell you, in any war, the winners always say the losers are evil, you know? But, you know, and Union soldiers killing Confederate soldiers, that wasn't a sin because they were at a war. And that's what war is. And if you study the biblical system, no one will say that is sin. Same with Nazi soldiers fighting US soldiers in World War II and killing them. None of them committed sin because they're fighting for their nation, killing their enemy. That's not sin. United States soldiers killing Nazi soldiers in a war, that's not sin because they're fighting to defend their own national interests in a war. Do you see how that works? Because they're devout Christians among the Nazi soldiers. They're devout Christians among US soldiers. Like if you go to German churches, they have this memorial. Like we have our memorial. They said German soldiers from our church who died in World War I. You know, we have that too here. If you go to some churches, they have names of church members who died in World War I, World War II. In Germany, they have that too. If you go to some churches, they say, members of our church who died in World War I, members of our church who died in World War II. What do you think that means? There were true Christians in Nazi Germany who were fighting for the German government in World War II, who went to church as a devout Christian, true Christian, born-again Christian, who fought a war against the United States and killed U.S. soldiers. Some of them were killed by U.S. soldiers, so they died. So the church have a mass or they have a funeral service for them, and they honor their memory for having fought for Germany in World War II and have died while fighting in a war. What government was World War II government? Nazi government. So, yeah, a lot of people like to act like they're holier than thou. But union government was no innocent government. You know, I mean, everybody's talking like they're innocent, but you know how many Union soldiers raped and pillaged Southern Christians while they were occupying them during the Reconstruction era? The cruelty they showed to the Southerners. I mean, you were saying that was like righteous. I mean, you know, some people are ridiculous and try to make everything look black and white. It's not like that. You know, whenever there's a war, there's always gray. There's always gray. But one thing is clear in the Bible is Christians who are fighting for an army, whatever army that is, to defend their own nation, they have the right to kill the enemy. So if there are a lot of Christians in China now because they're underground churches. Some of them will be soldiers, and when they fight in a war, they're going to kill U.S. soldiers, knowing that they're Christians, even if they know they're Christians. But they're Christians too. These Chinese who are going to be fighting in the Chinese Red Army, is it sin for them to kill U.S. soldiers, knowing that they're Christians? No, it's their nation. So you know, we live in a fallen world. We live in a world that is evil and sinful. And until Jesus comes back again, this world is going to be imperfect. And in this imperfect world, the code of ethics that guides warfare and clandestine operation that is pretty clear in the Bible, it's been consistent for 2,000 years. And that's why I could say with confidence, it was not sin for Confederate soldiers to kill Union soldiers, and it wasn't sin for Union soldiers to kill Confederate soldiers, because they're defending their own realm, right? People like to judge the enemy based on their own system, but you know, it's not that simple. You can't simplify things like that. Life is not simple, you know, and Bible clearly says slavery is not sin. So let's say you're a slave. Well, of course you're going to get offended because you don't like that Bible verse. But Bible says slavery is not sin. So you cannot say that Confederacy is evil, because slavery is not sin in the New Testament. St. Paul clearly said, to Onesimus, the slave, you got to go back to your slave master and become a slave. Continue to be a slave. And St. Paul said slaves have to serve their slave master like Christians have to serve Jesus. That's the New Testament teaching. If you're a slave or a descendant of slave, obviously you're going to be offended by that. And I understand that, you know, because that's your personal experience. I have empathy for that. But when we look at the Bible doesn't say slavery is sin. So anyone who says slavery is sin will go to eternal damnation in hell, because they're objecting to the New Testament. And I know Black Christians are true Christians who will never say slavery is sin. Never. Because they don't want to go to hell. Because anyone who says slavery is sin, they're saying they're better than God. God doesn't say slavery is sin. Inspired authors of the Bible taught slaves to go back to their slave masters and serve them like they would serve Jesus Christ. They were Christian slaves. So Christians in the New Testament did not want to free slaves who became Christians. They wanted slaves to remain slaves. St. Paul wanted slaves who converted to Christianity to remain slaves. That's why St. Paul told Onesimus to go back to the slave. So, yes, if you are a slave or you're a descendant of slave, you may be offended by this, but that's the Bible, right? So, a lot of Black ministers that I know who respect the Bible will never say slavery is sin. Because to say that is to oppose the Bible. And do you want to go to eternal damnation in hell forever? Yeah, so you can never call slavery sin. You could say, I disagree with slavery. You could say, I think slavery is evil, according to the definition I impute to it. But you can never say slavery is sin. Sin is a word that is a religious word, right? Like something is a sin. What is the definition of sin? Sinning is going against God's word. New Testament, which is God's word, does not condemn slavery, does not call slavery sin, does not call for emancipation of slaves. So you cannot call Confederacy evil, right? You cannot call Confederacy evil. On what basis are you calling Confederacy evil? Because they own slaves? Well, the New Testament protects that right for people to own slaves. So, you know, let's get the facts straight here. You know, so I know a lot of Northerners who don't read the Bible, do not respect the Bible, but Jesus has his law. And Bible is eternal. It's not like New Testament is just for first century and it doesn't apply to us in 21st century. It applies to us too. That's why you could never say slavery is sin. So the moment that Southern Baptists say slavery is sin, they're all going to hell. Those who say slavery is sin will go to eternal damnation in hell. Every Southern Baptist who says slavery is sin will go to eternal damnation in hell, because you are opposing the word of God. You cannot do that. Now, obviously, you know, my argument is God freed African American slaves in America because African American slaves said, please free us. And God chose to free African American slaves. But God has not changed his position. God does not consider slavery sin. Just because God freed African American slaves does not mean he changed his position on slavery. How do we know that? God freed ancient Israelites from being slaves in Egypt, right? Jews were slaves in Egypt. God freed them from slavery from Pharaoh and brought them out. Did God condemn slavery after that? No. God not only allowed people to have slaves, everyone had slaves who could afford it in Israel. From the moment that Israelites were emancipated from their slavery all the way to the time of Jesus, Jews, Israelites, Christian believers had slaves. Because God does not condemn slavery as sin. So just because you got your freedom from slavery, don't go changing New Testament. Because as I showed you, God emancipated Jews from their slavery in Egypt, but God did not say all slavery should be abolished. It was a special case. Ancient Israelites cried out to the Lord in their wretched state of slavery. God heard their cry and freed them. It was just a special case. In the same way, when God freed African Americans from slavery in America, it was a one-time special case because people cried out to the Lord. God did not change the rules. Slavery is still not sin. Confederacy was not evil because that's slavery. Because they're following, there's nothing in the Bible that condemns it. You could choose not to have slaves, that's fine. That's your choice. But you can have slaves, that's not sin. You know, because the New Testament says it's not sin. And so if you're a Southern Baptist Christian who says slavery is sin, you're definitely going to hell. Because you're saying slavery is sin when God says slavery is not sin. You're opposing God himself. You're going to hell. So I'm happy to clarify that for those of you who have had questions about it. And that goes for white Christians, Korean Christians, Black Christians, Chinese Christians, Hispanic Christians, whoever calls slavery sin, you're going to hell because you're opposing the word of God, right? What do you think submitting to the word of God means? It means submitting to parts that you don't want to submit to. You have to submit to it. That's what it means, right? I mean, you're not God. You don't decide what's sin and what's not sin. But when you say slavery is sin, you're acting like God. Don't you think God's offended that you're acting like God, that you're better than God? Why would he let you into heaven when you keep pressing this issue and saying that slavery is sin when it's not? So make sure you understand the Bible. And God, who has written this Bible through inspired authors, and that is supposed to be your standard for your life. Ethical systems are different. And for a Christian ethical system, slavery is not sin. You could choose not to have slaves, that's your freedom. As a society, you could decide not to have slavery, that's fine. But you cannot say slavery is evil. Evil in the sense that it's evil in the eyes of God. It may be evil in your eye, you could say, but it's not evil in God's eye. God approves of slavery. He made exceptions for ancient Israelites. He made exceptions for African Americans. That doesn't change the Bible. So you have to be clear on that point. Bible states some ethical principles that you cannot violate. It's very simple as that. So when Southern Baptist Convention, if there are Southern Baptist preachers who say slavery is sin, you got to leave that church because he's standing against the word of God. Very simple as that. You gotta honor the word of God. You gotta honor the word of God. Yeah. So so going back to Estonia, I had a lot of I met a lot of scholars, and those two scholars there in the center, they are the leading experts of religion in Estonia, the whole country. And they're professors at University of Tartu. And I met some Estonians. So let me tell you the story of the Estonians that I met. Um, yeah, so let me start with the date. I met um, Helena Hav, that's her name. Helena at a bookstore, so I think she's like a manager at a bookstore, and she looks so pretty, she looked angelic. So I asked her out, and on a date, like for dinner, and she said yes. So I went. Geez, I was, I was like really fat back then. I'm still like fat, but I look fatter there than I am now, But anyway, I asked her out, and she said yes. So I took her out on a date, and we had a good time, and yeah, Helena Hav, she's she's beautiful, and I said when I saw her for the first time when I walked into the bookstore, I had a question about a book. I was like, who cares about the book? I want to like have dinner with her, Obviously, it didn't work out. We didn't get married, but unfortunately, but yeah, she's everybody in the whole country is Christian. It's like Europe. Most people are Christians. But yeah, oh well. What can you do? Person right next to me in the video, she is a scholar of Hebrew in Belgium. So her father owns I guess, publishing company that's like 500 years old. She was saying, and she teaches Hebrew and Jewish studies at Catholic University of Leuven. So so she's a professor there in Hebrew and Jewish studies. And so she's Belgian. She's beautiful. So I had lunch with her. She presented an interesting paper. I attended her session and saw that. So she's a fellow conference attendee, but she's from Belgium. And there's some, scenic photos there. There's one of the cave, and then there's one of the building, and there's a statue on the fountain. And there's a guy and a girl kissing. It's a really romantic statue. So if you ever go to Estonia, visit University of Tartu and see that statue. It's great. There's some scenic stuff there. I meant to go down to south of Estonia with a new person I met from Oxford University. She was a PhD student at Oxford, and we kind of hit it off. And we say, "Oh, why don't we do some scenic tour tomorrow?" And she said, "Yeah." So we agreed to meet at 9 a.m. and she didn't show. And we were gonna play hooky for the whole day. I think she was kind of like she chickened out at the last minute because she was a PhD student at Oxford, and her PhD professors from Oxford were there, and I guess she was afraid to play hooky. Um, so I just went by myself because the bus was leaving. They had like one bus like one or two buses in the morning. There was one at 9 and one at 11. I wasn't, obviously she went to the sessions. She chickened out. She don't want to play hooky anymore. So I just played hooky by myself. I went down there with the bus, and then I located like like two Estonian women. And then I met this guy who was like in the area, and it was awkward just for me to go with two women. I figured, you know, and he said we were gonna rent a boat together. So I'm like, hey, I'm like short on cash, so I need another guy who chip in. So I asked this guy, and he's from Holland, and he's like a male model in Holland, and I figured like the girls were like that, and so so he paid his share. All of us like paid like four ways. I guess we should have paid for the women, but anyway, yeah. One's a journalist and one works as a curator of a museum in the capital of Estonia. So it's not like they're, I mean, so we went on a trip, and I'm like fat, and I'm not, I'm not really physically fit at that time. And so I'm like, I don't want to row this boat. I thought it was like a motor boat when we rented, but it's like a rowboat. There's like So, so one of like the girls rode, and the guy rode. I didn't row because I was like kind of lazy, but they were nice about it. You know, I tried to with entertain them with my jokes and stories. But anyway, I also got to go party a little bit in Estonia. I just wanted to check out the party scene. So I met like three girls there, you know, and they're I guess like they're like college students at University of Tartu. And so we hung out and we talked and we, like there's dancing there, and so we had a good time. You know, I got to know a little bit more about Estonian culture, and it was just fun time, just like hanging out. So Estonia was great, but I don't know. Somebody should give me a haircut. I should get the haircut from the same woman who gave Senator Lindsey Graham his haircut. He looked good in his haircut. Uh, well, I'm looking at the photo now. I don't need a haircut. You know, I just, you know, my hair is short, but I mean, on the photo, in the photos, my hair is like long. I mean, dude, get a haircut. You know, I just feel like saying to myself, back in the future or back in the past. But anyway, yeah, I'm glad that you got to share today with me. And as you saw, like there aren't too many deaths in Latin America, which kind of proves my theory that this is a preemptive strike using a next generation biological weapon. Because right now, countries that have large number of deaths is United States, our allies in Europe, and Brazil, which is our ally in Latin America, our strongest ally in Latin America, which proves from a social scientific angle my theory that this COVID-19 is an advanced biological weapon that is a genetically modified virus. So watch my previous episodes for fuller discussion of that issue. And I'm happy that you were able to share in my life, 1 week of my life at a European Association of Biblical Studies conference in Estonia, and meet my friends. Oh, and the girl in the center is Liz Puis. So I met her, you know, then, and since then she's gone to like medical school, and she's now a doctor uh, in um, in um, in Estonia. So I like to visit her, and see how she is. I told her to come to America. So, I was like Facebook friends with her. I don't have a Facebook account anymore. I you know, it, it was so time consuming to keep up with Facebook. So I'm like, I have to run a political campaign, Heerak Christian Kim for U.S. Congress in Virginia's 8th district. So I got rid of basically Facebook, and I should have like let everybody know, but I was like really campaigning hard, and so yeah, I mean I have their phone numbers and stuff, so or emails or whatever, so I guess I could contact them. I still have to get around to like giving everybody my new phone number. Oh gosh, I changed my new number from a Richmond number to Northern Virginia number, like 703 area code, in December, because I'm now running for U.S. Congress in this area. I started in November. So I gotta let everybody know, but I know so many people, it's hard to like let everybody know. Like I gotta let Helena have know, Liz Twist, and all those other friends, you know. Yeah, anyway, there's so many people to like meet up again with and catch up with. Especially Liz Quiz, she's amazing. You should see her like, yeah, I mean she's amazing. She's a medical doctor. She's very creative, artistic. She's beautiful. She's nice and kind. I hope she comes as a doctor to America. She just graduated from medical school like a year ago or 2 years ago. So if she comes to like Washington D.C., she could start. She just has to take the board exams and she could practice as a doctor. I hope she does that. It'd be nice to like have Estonians friends of mine come to US. But anyway, yeah. So I'm glad that you shared this time with me, celebrating, commencement of University of Pennsylvania. Hey, congratulations, everybody! I'm happy that you got to learn more about how Bible views slavery, concept of inerrancy, the differing ethical system, ethics in the military, ethics in business, ethical system in the Bible. They're all kind of different. Different professional organizations have different ethical systems. And I guess uh, most ethicists understand that there's relativism in the modern era with ethics and ethical value systems. In a multicultural system, it's difficult to have a unifying ethics. Like in Arlington, Alexandria, Falls Church, and Fairfax County, we have 100 different nations. They all have different cultural value system, right? Which means they all have different ethical system. I mean, there are similarities, but there are differences. So you cannot homogenize all the ethical systems, at least at the societal level or cultural level. Uh, Christian ethical system is unified. Like everyone who follows the Bible have to say slavery is not sin, because that's like Bible is the authority for the ethical system. So you cannot contradict the Bible. If you contradict the Bible, then you're no longer submitting to the Bible, and that becomes a problem, right? And so, yeah. But anyway, yeah. So I'm glad that you were introduced to this diversity of ethics, but also unity, because Christian ethics, all Christians have to submit to Christian ethics ultimately. It's the ultimate authority for all Christians, regardless of which profession they are in, regardless of what society or country they're in. All Christians must submit to Christian ethics that is definitive and authoritative based on the New Testament. And obviously slavery issues, New Testament ethics that I've explained to you. It's not, I mean, it's in the Old Testament. They agree. Old Testament and New Testament agree. So it's a unified ethics in the Bible. But I'm glad that you got to hear that from me, because your pastor probably hasn't done his job and explained to you the Bible is emphatic about saying that slavery is not sin. Yeah, but anyway, Bible is, and Bible has many passages on how you should handle your slaves as well, mostly in the Old Testament, but some in the New Testament. Yeah, so you need to respect Bible ethics. If you call yourself a Christian, you have to respect Bible ethics. There's no way around it. It doesn't matter if you're Black, Korean, Hispanic, white. It doesn't matter. Whoever you are, you have to respect the authority of the Holy Bible, or you no longer are a true Christian of the Bible, right? You reject the authority of the Bible, you're no longer really a true Christian. You're probably going to go to hell. So, and I don't want to go to hell. That's why I'm going to accept the authority of the Bible. Jesus did say, not men, then you're going to enter the kingdom of heaven. So maybe you're one of these people who think you're Christian, but you're rejecting the authority of the Bible, and will end up in hell. You'll find out, although you'll suffer for eternity for it. But yeah, and it's your life. You make your decisions. You live whatever the way you want to live. It's your choice. I've decided to follow Jesus. There's no turning back. No turning back for me. I've decided to follow Jesus. So, but anyway, yeah. So, yeah, vote for me for Virginia's 8th District for U.S. Congress, Alexandria, Arlington Falls Church, and Fairfax County. I am running for the general election, November 3rd, 2020. As I've shared with you, Virginia Governor Northam and the Democratic Party seem to be trying, and Dan Beyer as well as a Democrat, seem to be trying to block me out of the ballot box. Maybe because, I say biblical things like slavery is not sin. They may be offended as Democrats by that. But, there's freedom of speech. We're protected by the First Amendment, right? And, disrespecting the cultural heritage of all Virginians, that's not right either, And so I stand by my right to speak under the First Amendment. I have the freedom of the press, freedom of the religion. It's an integral part of my religion that says, Onesimus, go back to your slave. That's part of my religion. And my religion, the New Testament says, slaves must obey their slave masters like they obey Jesus Christ. That's my religion. It's part of the New Testament. Um, and so I don't apologize for my religion. I have freedom of religion in the United States of America. And so, yeah, so, I'm protected under the First Amendment. This show is protected under the First Amendment. I have the right to run as a U.S. congressman. And Democrats playing dirty, trying to put me out of the ballot box, it's just wrong. I'm an official candidate for U.S. Congress under Federal Election Commission, which is a government agency that overlooks all candidates running for federal election, including current senators and current House of Representative members. I'm also registered as a official candidate for U.S. Congress in Virginia's 8th District with U.S. House of Representatives, right, with the Office of the Clerk. And so every U.S. House of Representative member registered through them. They monitor the financial records of U.S. House of Representative members like Don Beyer, Nancy Pelosi, and also candidates who run for office. And so I'm officially registered with them. So I'm official federal candidate. I'm a official candidate for U.S. Congress in Virginia's 8th District. I'm official. But now, in the United States, we have 50 states, and each state has their own election law. So Virginia has an election law, and under Virginia's election law, candidates have to collect 1,000 signatures who are independent candidate. I'm an independent candidate for U.S. Congress, and the deadline is June 9th. So it's still time away. But Virginia Democratic Governor Northam issued a stay-at-home order on March 30th to last till June 10th. So I cannot go home to collect signatures because it's illegal. I'm saying that Virginia Governor Northam did this illegally to help, did this to protect Don Beyer, because he blocked out March till June 10th from the very beginning when other governors did not do that. So I'm saying that, it seems fishy to me because my deadline to submit the signatures is June 9th. And I can't submit it. I can't collect it during stay-at-home order. And so I wrote to Virginia Board of Elections and I asked them to give me a waiver, and they said they don't have a legal authority to do that. And they took over a month to reply, and I called and left a message. So that's a little bit fishy too. So I wrote to Virginia Governor Northam saying, you have the legal authority as the governor to waive it, so please do that. So I wrote to him over a week ago. I'm still waiting for Virginia Governor Northam's letter on this issue. I'm hoping that Virginia Governor Northam will issue the waiver for me in light of the fact that it's illegal for me to collect the signatures because of his executive order. So I'd encourage all of you to contact Virginia Governor Northam and U.S. Representative Don Beyer and tell them, let's have a fair election. Give Heerak a waiver. And Don Beyer should be brave enough to beat me in the ballot box. I know he feels threatened because I'm really qualified, but he should beat me in the ballot box. He shouldn't play dirty, right? Don Beyer should not play dirty, try to block me out of a ballot box, right? And so, yeah. So I would say, you should call Virginia Governor Northam and U.S. House of Representative member Don Beyer and just kind of complain about this. Yeah. So get me on the ballot. I'm trying to help you and your family, survive COVID-19. We're only 3 months into this. Experts say it's going to last at least 2 years. And some say, like World Health Organization, say this is never going to go away. So I'm predicting that 1 million U.S. citizens will die by August. And I don't think I'm going to be wrong in this. I'm hoping to be wrong, but I don't think I'm going to be wrong. So let's see. Watch this show every day to keep up with what's going on, and make sure you contact Virginia Governor Northam, pressuring him to give me a waiver, or encouraging him to give me a waiver. Contact Don Beyer as well, who's a Democrat, so that I could be on the ballot. So I'm counting on you. Yeah, I trust you guys. You guys watch this show, and yeah, so help me so I could help you. So I hope that you are going to be well, and that you're children will be well as well. And check back tomorrow for this show. And I'll look forward to seeing all of you again. Okay, bye.